Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about whether Benchmade knives are overpriced. Benchmade Knives makes a lot of different knives across several different lines, which include the blue class of everyday carry knives, the black class of military and tactical knives, the gold class of art and custom knives, and the hunt series, which are aimed at hunters and sportsmen. For this video, I decided to consider the unit cost of the Griptilian 551 MDP. It's one of the most basic knives Benchmade makes and one of the cheapest that they make. And for the sake of this video, I also decided to do the 940-2. The 940-2 is the 940 variant that has a S30V blade and G10 handles. The first thing I consider when I do these estimates of unit cost is labor. I went on some job-related sites where Benchmade job openings were posted, and the basic positions at Benchmade pay roughly $14 an hour, if sites like Glassdoor are to be believed. Benchmade does have higher paying positions where their engineers can make up to $76,000 a year, and there are higher corporate positions that make into six figures. It's also interesting to note that it sounds like there's trouble in paradise at the Benchmade factory, and that there is perhaps less cohesion there between employees than Benchmade would like everyone to think, which could perhaps account for some of the uneven grinds and other Benchmade quality control problems that some of us tend to complain about. That aside, I'm going to set the average amount of labor for these knives, the average wage that we're just going to hypothetically say a worker at Benchmade makes at $18 an hour, considering that more employees are probably on the lower end of the pay scale than the higher end. I'm going to say that with all human processes of making this Griptilian, it's probably an hour in labor, so $18, whereas the more complex 940-2 would be about 2 hours to make, so it's about $36 in labor. Going on to the blades, this knife has a 154 cm blade, which would roughly cost the same as an Emerson blade blank of $9.81 for this unsharpened piece of steel that they would fabricate into that drop point blade. For the S30V blade of the 940-2, you can see this source of steel here. This steel blade, according to my calculations, would cost about $13.47 for the basic unfinished rough blank. Moving on, we go to the liners, which are usually made of some 440 series steel. I think these are 440 J2, which is sold in large steel coils, and it's sold by the ton. The pricing on these scales would be absolutely negligible. I'm going to say that it's about 25 cents per the pair for each Benchmade knife. Then we go on to the handles. I'm not exactly sure what process Benchmade uses to get this particular pattern pressed out of nylon. I know that in some of the more recent models, they're also using what they call jivery or jivery. It's like a rubberized kind of plastic handle. Given that, I found a piece of plastic online that's perhaps similar to whatever nylon plastic this is. With that estimate, I would say it costs about 90 cents to make a Griptilian handle. In reality, it's probably even less. For the 940-2 Benchmade knife, it uses regular G10. If we go off the same source of G10 that we did for the Emerson review, which you can see here, it's going to cost about $2.54 for the pair of handles. Looking at the screws used in these knives, they're using Torx. I believe this knife has 8 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, not counting the pivot. So if you calculate the torque screws at about 11 cents a torque screw, it's 88 cents on this knife. And for the other knife that I've calculated, it's about $1.21. We also should consider Benchmade's warranty, which is one of the better warranties out there. I'm going to say that if one person out of 10,000 sends in a knife and gets a $150 knife back, just to average out the knife prices there between something like this, which is $100-something, and Benchmade's more expensive offerings. If one person's getting a free $150 knife with warranty replacement, it's about 2 cents on every Benchmade knife that's sold. As far as miscellaneous cost, you have things like the pocket clips. You have Axis lock bars in here. You have Axis Omega springs. I think this has phosphor bronze washers in it. I'm going to say for both knives, miscellaneous cost is about $1. You have packaging, which if you look at this Benchmade box, this is one of the older varieties. It comes with a little cloth bag and drawstring. I believe the new ones still do. You have your foam interior. The newer Benchmade boxes look more like this one, which I had from a rescue hook. I believe it has the same kind of interior as this one did, even if it's a rescue hook, except for the rescue hook came with a sheath, so it didn't have the little nylon bag. Benchmade seems to put more money into their packaging than other companies do. This one here in particular is a thick cardboard, you can kind of see, and they use the silver material and put that Life Sharp, which is their sharpening program logo, on there. I'm going to say that they're spending about $1.50 on that box per knife. As far as marketing goes, Benchmade does more marketing than some of the other companies do. It's essentially a household name if you know anything about knives. I'd say they spend about $5 per knife on marketing. If you look at Benchmade's machinery, they do a really nice job at showing online about their factory, the processes to make the knife. They have pictures of people loading things on the machines. They have pictures of people holding knives on a grinder. They have pictures of the giant press, and I believe there is video available of that giant, I think it's a Traumatic press that will punch out several hundred knives, and then they just kind of take them off the steel and start grinding them. Benchmade has a lot of machines. They have a lot of expensive machines. I'd say the cost per knife is probably about $12 a knife. Then you have to lastly figure in your taxes and compliance costs. That's anything to comply with environmental regulations, government taxes, lawyer fees, patent fees, any kind of fee that you might have on your company. I'm going to say Benchmade probably pays about $7 per knife in fees for compliance. So you go down to the totals with these knives. You have something like a Griptilian. Griptilian's a good knife. It's a good all-around knife. I like the Griptilian. It's a roughly, according to my calculations, the unit cost to make one is $56.36. The 940-2 comes out to about $79.99, so it's roughly an $80 knife. So then we get into how much these knives are sold for. If you buy them off of Benchmade's website or from a particular institution that charges full MSRP for the knife, you're going to pay $120 for the Griptilian and $200 for the 940-2. Luckily, if you go to the dealer, even with Benchmade's MAP policy, this knife is $102, which kind of sucks considering I got this knife for $77, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago. And the other knife, the 940-2, is $170 if you go to any given knife dealer on the internet. If we consider profit margins, if you buy this knife right from Benchmade, They subtract the cost to make it, and they end up with about a 113% profit. For the 940, the profit margin's even higher. It's about 150% if you bought it from Benchmade. If we talk about dealers selling these knives, I'm going to say that a dealer selling a Griptilian, they're buying it from Benchmade from $102, and then you subtract the cost to make the knife and say $20, the dealer gets to sell it, and $25.64 of profit goes back to Benchmade. It's a 45% profit if it's sent to a dealer, which is really not that high, even though I do consider this knife to be overpriced in my humble opinion. If we look at the dealer costs for the model 940-2, if I'm going to say the dealer bought it from Benchmade for $170 minus the cost to make it, and we'll just say they get $25 for every one they sell, because it's a little nicer than a Griptilian. Benchmade ends up getting about $65 out of that, so an 81% profit. These profit margins aren't huge. They're higher, obviously, if you bought them from Benchmade. I tend to find that Benchmade, given these materials, they seem overpriced. I'd say with these calculations, it's not terrible. They could definitely, I think, do better on some of their higher end knives as you go up that sliding scale. You get to something like the 940-2 here, where it's a lot nicer than the Griptilian. It's not plastic. It's not, half liner, half plastic as far as the knife goes. But that's my data for these knives. I'll let you come to your own conclusion.